This is why we call this emergency education, folks. Let's get straight into this. This is going to be quick, because we're at 1 hour and 22 minutes, and I need to get my hole out of here pretty soon. So, let's get our little screen up here. What we're going to do is, we're going to talk very briefly about these 4 key educational categories. We talked about these on Friday's live stream, which is now down the toilet. So what we're going to do is, we're going to get ourselves off and going here. We're going to just give a few little points of direction here. So for someone who's on the other end of the show here, who doesn't know how to educate themselves, and they need a crash course in education, they need to figure out, how do I get started? What are some of the basics? Okay, well, a crash course in emergency education, from the Bandido's perspective, falls into 4 educational categories. What are these 4 educational categories? You need to educate yourself on your physical health, number 1. Number 2, your financial health. Number 3, human psychology, in other words, how your own mind works as a human. And number 4, you need to educate yourself on how to look after number 1, first and foremost. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, we're going to break down super quickly, crash course, we're going to fly through this. These are 4 educational topics that are not well dealt with in conventional education. How many people leave school and university truly understanding how to care for their physical health? Not very many people. We don't get taught about it at school in any significant way, and when you go to university, you don't get taught about it in the correct way there either. Number 2, financial health. How much time at school do you learn about money and finances and how the financial system works? And when you do go to university, you get taught a whole bunch of bogus nonsense about how economics works. That's why nobody has a fucking clue what inflation is. That's what I was talking about on the previous show on Friday. So we need to understand how do we care for our financial health? We are never educated on this. We don't get taught about this. You're just basically thrown out into the world and you haven't a fucking clue how the system works. Okay. Number 3, how many people when they leave conventional education actually understand how their own mind works? Folks, if you don't understand how your own mind works, then that means you are more susceptible to manipulative strategies and exploitative strategies from other people. Because if you don't know how your own mind works, then you won't be able to identify strategies that are being used on your mind. You need to understand how human psychology works. This isn't only going to help you with relationships, in terms of friendships and romantic partnerships. It's also going to help you in the world of business, in terms of business relationships. It's also going to help you understand power dynamics in the world. It's going to help you understand what you're looking at when you look at politicians, when you look at all this shit that comes out in the media. So again, human psychology, extremely important. And then fourthly and finally, educational category number 4. Looking after number 1. Extremely important to look after number 1. To be selfish. To put your interests before other people's. We are told in this modern global world that we need to be an altruist. That we need to be self-sacrificial. That it's a bad thing to be self-interested. We're told all this crap. And all that does is, it puts you in a position of weakness in life. Because if you don't have your own house in order, how the fuck can you help anybody else? If you are whack out of shape, obese, if you are diseased, if you're in physical pain, if you are broke, if you have no money, if you don't understand how your own mind works, and you don't understand man-woman dynamics and power dynamics in the world, how can you help other people? How can you actually be a source of useful advice for other people if you yourself don't have yourself in optimal circumstances? You need to make sure that you are catered for first and foremost before you start dishing out the advice to other people and before you start trying to help other people. You don't want to put the cart before the horse, in other words. It's extremely important that you get yourself right, because it's only through getting yourself right can you actually be most effective in helping other people. Otherwise, you just become an anchor. You become a fucking hindrance for people. You're of no use or value whatsoever. Okay, so physical health. I hope this is going to let me type. Let's see. So physical health. There are 4 components to physical health: diet, exercise, sleep, and sunshine or natural daylight. Those are the 4 components. Now, in order to get ourselves up and going in terms of physical health, what can you do? Let's have a look at diet. Remember, this is emergency education, folks. Crash course in how to educate yourself quickly. Now, if you want to improve your diet, what is one thing I would tell you to do if you wanted to improve your diet? Because remember, diet is one of the very important 4 components of your physical health. Folks, if you don't have your physical health, none of the rest of these things matter. We all know this. If your physical health is in jeopardy, it doesn't matter a fuck how much money you have. It doesn't matter how well you know human psychology. It doesn't matter what you have in this life. If you don't have your physical health, life ain't worth living. Because if you're diseased, if you're in pain, and if you're staring down the barrel of the gun and you're about to die, the only thing that's a priority is keeping yourself alive, is getting yourself healthy again. So if you don't have your physical health, you don't have anything. So it's extremely important when we're looking at these 4 components of physical health. We need to make sure that we're looking after our physical health because it takes priority above everything else. Okay, so if you were to take component number 1 of physical health, which is your diet, okay? So diet. What is the one thing that I would tell you? If there was one piece of advice that I could give you for your diet, emergency education, here's what I would say. Add more starch to your diet. That is the first thing I would tell you. If you only had to do, it's the first and only thing I would tell you on a crash course for fucking emergency education. Add more starch to your diet. What is starch? Starch equals potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, pasta, beans, lentils, oats, noodles, corn, millet, etc., etc. These are all starches, folks. Rice, corn, potatoes, sweet potatoes, pasta, beans, lentils, oats, noodles, millet. I'm just going to put etc. If there was one piece of advice that I could give you, one piece of advice with regards to improving your diet, what I would say to you is add more starch to your diet. Add more potatoes, add more sweet potatoes, add more rice, add more pasta, add more beans, add more lentils, add more oats, add more noodles, add more corn, add more millet, etc. There are other starches as well. These are just some of the more common starches, we could say. Millet perhaps isn't that common here, but it's common sort of out in the Mediterranean and out in Africa. Okay. Add more starch to your diet. That would be the number 1 thing I would recommend someone do if they want to try and improve their diet. Okay, that's diet. Let's have a look at the next component. Exercise. What is the number 1? If I had to pick one thing to say to someone to do in order to improve their exercise, here's what I would say. Walk backwards uphill. And I'll even say walk/run. If there was one exercise that I would recommend someone do, one exercise, because remember, it's a crash course. If you want to improve your current exercise regime, the one thing I would advise you to do is to find an incline, find a slope, find a hill. Go out into nature, go out into your local park. It doesn't even matter if it's not out in nature. Just find a fucking hill somewhere. And instead of walking up the hill conventionally, walking forward, walk or run up that hill backwards. That's it. The act of moving backwards is extremely good for your body. Most people don't do it. Most people just walk in a forward motion. It is really good to start introducing some backward walking or backward running into your exercise routine. It'll do wonders over a long enough time frame for your physical health, particularly for your knees, for ankles, for all this sort of stuff. So if there was one thing that I was to say to you, one exercise, one kind of physical activity for you to incorporate into your daily routine, it would be to walk or run backwards uphill. That's it. Now, are there other things you could do? Of course. It's a crash course, folks. It's to get you started. Okay, so that's exercise. Find yourself an incline, find yourself a hill, and walk or run backwards. If you can't run, it doesn't matter. That's why I'm saying walk or run. Either one is really good. That will do your lower body, because folks, everybody's always thinking about the upper body. I want to get big muscles, big arms, big chest, big back. Nobody thinks about their lower body. Everybody forgets about the lower body. Everybody wants the fucking Hercules physique. Everybody wants to look like, what do you call that dude out of Hercules? Not Thor. Zeus. Everyone wants to look like Zeus. Great. Okay. I'm not saying you can't do upper body exercise, but the reason why I'm giving you this exercise specifically is because most people neglect their lower body. They don't really do anything for it. So all I'm saying is find an incline, find an uphill slope and walk up it backwards. That'll be an excellent starting point. Introduce that into your exercise routine. Okay, third component, sleep. If I had to say one thing for you to do, crash course, to improve your sleep, I would say this. Turn off all electronics and artificial light 1 hour before bed. That's it. You see this whole idea, I need to go to bed at the same time, I need to get up at the same time. No. If you just 1 hour before you go to bed, whatever time you tend to go to bed at, the rough average time, if you tend to go to bed roughly at around 10 o'clock, 1 hour before you go to bed, turn off all your electronics and artificial light. Yes, that means the lights on your ceiling, the fucking light on your phone, the light on your laptop, the light on your TV. Turn it all off. And if you want light, light a fucking candle or put your fire on. Get the artificial light out of your eye an hour before going to bed. That is going to help your sleep enormously. Sleep is an extremely important component of your physical health. And one of the best pieces of advice that I could give to someone is 1 hour before they typically go to bed, turn it all off. And if you want a source of light, find a natural source of light. Find natural fire. There's stuff out there on the internet, folks. You need to be careful what you're buying. But there will be products out there that are going to mimic natural fire. The light from natural fire. Do your own homework. Do your own research. But what I would recommend is turn off the electronics and the artificial light 1 hour before bed. That will do wonders for your sleep. It will allow your eyes to neuroadapt to the decreasing light intensity as the evening and the night comes in. And that will naturally induce sleepiness. It will cause you to start releasing your melatonin. That's what you need. You just want sleepiness to be induced as the light intensity naturally drops. In order to do that, you need to turn off all the artificial light and the electronics. It's an important part of your physical health, folks. That's what I would say there. Finally, sunshine / natural daylight. Okay, simple for this one. Get outside for a minimum of 2 hours every day. Folks, this isn't a big fucking ask. Get your hole outside for 2 hours. That's it. 2 hours is all you need. I think I'm actually off the screen here. Let me readjust this. Hold on. Let's see. Because I think I'm looking at my monitor here. Let me adjust this. Because I don't think anybody can see. I'm just realizing this now. Bear with me for a second. Keep all of this on the screen. Let's see. Is that any better? You should be able to see all of that now. Let me see. I'll see the monitor here whenever it comes up. That should be better. Anyway, I'll keep going. Sunshine and natural daylight. Very simple, folks. Let me just add little things in here. Let me put this here. That's one. Exercise, sleep, and sunshine / natural daylight. Okay. So, sunshine, natural daylight, folks. Very simple. 2 hours a day. This isn't a big ask. Fuck me, folks. You've got 24 hours in a day. Get your hole outside for 2 hours a day. It doesn't matter if it's not sunny. The ideal scenario is for there to be sunshine, of course. Get a bit of sunshine on your skin. But you don't need sunshine. If it's a cloudy day, it does not matter. The natural daylight is basically the same thing as sunshine. It's the same thing. Fair enough. You won't get a tan in the same way as the sunshine will tan you, but what you're looking to do is you're looking to get natural light on your skin and in your eyes. This is going to help your sleep. It's extremely important. That's why it's the 4th most important component of your physical health. You need to be getting outside. And I would say for a minimum of 2 hours a day. That's not a big ask, folks. 2 hours a day to get your arse outside. That's it. Okay, so that's physical health. Crash course on physical health. That is what I would say. You've got your 4 components: diet, exercise, sleep, and sunshine. Pause the video. Pause the screen. You can keep on looking at this if you want to. I'm going to move on to the next category. Okay, so that's physical health. If you don't have your physical health, folks, you don't have anything. Okay. Next one, financial health. So again, financial health. If I had to give one piece of advice for your financial health, what would it be? Don't get into debt. That is the best piece of advice that I could give anyone in terms of their financial health. Folks, the fiat financial system, that's the financial system that we use. We use currencies like dollars, pounds, fucking euros, fuck knows what other dog shit currency exists out there. There's a whole bunch of them. They're all fiat currencies. What you need to understand is that the fiat financial system, which you and I use, it is a system built on layers of debt. That's what the system's built on. Why do you think all of these governments are in a shit ton of debt? They're in debt because they continuously do what? They print money. How do you print money? You print money by loaning money. You create money out of thin air through loans. What happens whenever you get a house? You get a mortgage. What is that? It's a loan. What happens whenever you get a car? If you don't buy it outright, what do you need to do? You take out a loan and you pay it back in installments, basically. So you pay it back with interest on each repayment, in other words. The entire system is built on debt. So people are constantly taking out loans from the fiat system, whether it's loans for a house to be bought, loans for a car, loans to start a fucking business, who knows? The system is constantly printing money. And when you print money, what happens to the existing money supply? You inflate it. That is what we call inflation. So whenever you do a whole bunch of money printing, and remember, how do you print money in the fiat financial system? You do it through debt. It's loans, in other words. When you give a loan out to someone, you're creating debt. And that person has to pay that debt back with interest so that the party who has issued the loan makes money. So the entire system is built on debt. My number one piece of advice in this life when it comes to your financial health would be to not get into debt. If you can't buy something outright, you shouldn't be buying it. That's my motto. That's my motto. I don't want to be in fucking debt, folks. Debt is a surefire way for me to get myself into a position of weakness. All it takes is a fucking extraordinary event in the world, like a pandemic, a financial crisis, an energy crisis, or a fucking war. Any of this sound familiar, folks? What happened in 2020? Pandemic. What happened in 2023 or 2022? War. Ukraine and Russia. What happened this year? US, Israel, Iran, war. What's going to be the consequences of this? Financial crisis, energy crisis. Folks, if you are already in a shit ton of debt, you are going to be in a position of weakness in life. Because once the fireworks start to kick off in the world, whether it's a financial crisis, a pandemic, or a war, you now, because you're already up to your eyeballs in debt, what's going to happen? What happens when there are significant events in the world, like pandemics, wars, and fucking financial crises? What does the government do? What do the banks do whenever these events happen? They print more money. In other words, they give out more loans, which leads to more what? Debt. This is why I say the entire system is built on debt. So whenever you have significant events happening, the government starts to send out a whole bunch more loans to people, starts to bail people out. In other words, they start to print more money. And when you print more money, what do you do to the currency? Whether it's the euro, whether it's the pound, whether it's the dollar, it doesn't matter. When you print more money, you debase the currency, which means your currency loses its purchasing power. And if your wage doesn't keep pace with inflation, you're fucked. And please remind me, folks, is your wage keeping pace with inflation? That's right, I thought so. It isn't. The last thing you need to be doing, folks, is getting into debt. Whether that's debt at Christmas because you can't fucking control yourself with a credit card, or getting into debt buying a house, buying a fucking car, getting a whole shit ton of loans out to start a fucking business. Folks, if you can't buy something outright, you shouldn't be buying it. Simple. That's the motto that I use. If I can't buy it outright, I don't have it. And you know why? I don't want to be in debt. Because when I'm in debt, I'm in a relative position of weakness compared to where I would be if I was not in debt. That's the number one piece of advice that I would give. Don't get into debt. If you can't buy it outright, you shouldn't be buying it. Okay, that's financial health. Crash course. Next one, human psychology. Now, what would I say about this? Again, it's very important that you understand your own mind. Extremely important. If you don't understand your own mind, that means you can be manipulated. If you don't understand the inner workings of your own psychology, but other people do understand the inner workings, the other people can use their knowledge of the mind to manipulate yours. So it's very important for you to understand how your own mind works. If I had to give you one piece of advice with regards to human psychology and human behavior, I would say this. Listen to people's words and observe their actions. Hold on, I'll have to bring this off. Hold on a second. I don't want to do that same thing I did before. Whoa, what has happened here? Let's see. Now, there we go. Listen to people's words and observe their actions. If their words and actions contradict one another. Let me see if I can move this up a little. If their words and actions contradict one another, don't trust them. There is the number one piece of advice that I could give you with regards to human psychology. Listen, if you're trying to get a read on someone, folks, because at the end of the day, we are a social creature. We have to interact with other humans. One of the big questions that we need to ask ourselves is, can I trust this person? It doesn't matter whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, or a business relationship, or even a family relationship, a familial relationship. If it's an inevitability, folks, that you're going to meet people in this life, one of the key things that you need to develop, one of the key skills you need to develop is to figure out if that person is worth your time and attention and if you can trust them. How do you do this? If I had to give you one piece of advice when it comes to human psychology, it would be this. Listen to people's words and observe their actions. If their words and actions contradict one another, don't trust them. We talk about this on the show all the time. Listen to their words, observe their actions. If their words and actions are not in agreement, in other words, if they are saying one thing and doing another thing, don't trust them. I'm not saying they are bad people, but what I am saying is don't trust them. Don't throw your lot in with them because they are giving you evidence that they have an agenda that they are trying to conceal from you. And if they are concealing an agenda from you, that probability-wise means that they are probably trying to manipulate and exploit you in some way. Otherwise, they wouldn't conceal it from you. So, words and actions. Whenever someone says something to you, folks, you want to figure out, do these words have meaning? Are they a man or woman of their word? How do we know if someone is a man or woman of their word? You need to watch and observe their actions. And if you see someone's words are at odds with their actions, take note. That person is not to be trusted. Whether that's a romance, a friendship, a business relationship, or a fucking family member. Don't give your family members a Bible. Family members can be some of the most manipulative people on the planet because they use this crap of, oh, well, we're related through genes. Blood is thicker than water. Fucking crap. Listen to their words, observe their actions, and cast your judgment then. If you are seeing a contradiction between what they say and what they do, don't trust them. You need more information. Don't throw your lot in with them. That would be my number one piece of advice, human psychology-wise. Okay, now, last thing. Looking after number one. As I said on Friday's show, one of my favourite topics of all. Being selfish, folks. What would I say here? If I had to give you one piece of advice on this crash course of emergency education, here's what I would say. To restore balance, brackets, help other people, you must first restore balance to yourself. Okay. That is the best thing that I could say to you to convince you or to at least help you realize the importance of looking after number one and being selfish. To restore balance, in other words, to help other people, to restore balance, because that's what you're doing. When you're helping someone in this life, folks, what are you really trying to do? If someone is in trouble in life, they are out of balance. Their life is out of balance in some way. So if someone needs your help, what they are basically saying to you is, Mr. Bandido, my life is out of balance. Can you help me restore balance to this aspect of my life? Okay, so to restore balance or help other people, you must first restore balance to yourself. If you are turbulent, if your life is turbulent, if you haven't got your health in order, if you haven't got your finances in order, and if you don't really understand the nature of human personality and human behavior, you aren't balanced. Your life is not in balance. How the fuck can you help someone else restore balance to their life if your life in the here and now is not in balance? How can you do that? You can't do it very effectively. So if your goal in this life, folks, is to be as valuable, useful, and helpful to other people, you must put the horse before the cart. You need to put the horse, in front of the cart. Don't put the cart before the horse. You need to make sure you are the horse. In order for you to help the people behind you in the cart, you need to be out in front and you need to have the strength and the knowledge and the sense of direction to be able to pull that cart to wherever they need to go. If you are a fat, obese horse who is sick and who doesn't know how to take care of itself, how are you going to help the people in the cart? You can't. And so we have this phrase in life, don't put the cart before the horse, basically. You don't want to be putting the cart out in front. That's no use. And if you are the horse that's going to be pulling the cart, you as the horse, you need to be in an optimal state to be able to do that effectively. So there's one thing, don't put the cart before the horse, but the horse itself needs to be in shape. It needs to be in circumstances where it has restored balance to its own life. If your objective, folks, is to truly help people, then you will be selfish. You will look after number one, because you will understand that by having number one catered for, you are now in a position to effectively help people. Who wants help from a retard? Like, let's be honest, folks. If you're up shit creek without a paddle, do you want a retard coming to help you? No, you want a competent person. You want someone who has their own house in order, who is competent, who's in optimal circumstances. They are more likely, probability-wise, to help you or to be able to help you. You need to look at it similarly. To restore balance or help other people, you must first restore balance to yourself. Don't put the cart before the horse. And whenever you get the cart and the horse in the right order, you as the horse, you need to make sure that you're capable to actually help the people who are in the cart behind you. Okay, so there's your crash course, folks. Looking after number one. To restore balance to other people, you must first restore balance to yourself. It is literally a contradiction. It is counterproductive, sorry. If you haven't put yourself first and you haven't got your own ducks in a row, you can't effectively help other people. You're putting the cart before the horse, in other words. Okay, let's get our main screen back up